And the ripple effect goes far beyond Minnesota. In Boston, fears about ICE raids have led immigrants to skip medical appointments. In Ohio, businesses are seeing foot traffic dry up. And in California, people are opting to stay behind closed doors. Thousands of others are choosing to leave. Last year, more people left the U.S. than came in. That's the first time that's happened in half a century. And while that news was celebrated by the White House, experts warn it will have serious ramifications, not just for our culture, but for American businesses and taxpayers' bottom line. I want to bring in Eddie Glaude, Princeton University professor and an MS Now political analyst. So, Eddie, the president is threatening the Insurrection Act, the governor warning people to keep things peaceful, 2 shootings. Are we at a kind of tipping point, not just in Minnesota, but around the country, Eddie?
I think so, Chris. First of all, it's great to see you and Happy New Year. I think we are at a tipping point. The country's ugly underbelly is in full view. And we have to begin to ask ourselves some hard questions about what's really motivating this. The Trump administration will talk about fraud and crime and the like, but we have to begin to interrogate, I think, very clearly and carefully what's behind, what's driving this immigration policy. Because they're not just simply going after the so-called hard criminals. And what does it mean that we are witnessing in real time the erosion of rights for American citizens as they're using the pretext, right, of going after, quote unquote, criminal immigrants to do this. So I think we're in this really difficult space of understanding, or let me say it differently, Chris, of being honest about the ideology that's driving Trump's immigration policy and these actions right now.
Well, I think to that point, I was reading this morning, Eddie, from a member of the Jewish Democratic Council of America, who's on the ground in Minnesota, and who said this, quote, "I know many immigrants, people of color, and others have always lived in this state of fear. And I can't help feeling that we are in a new stage in which those in control feel so unencumbered by the rules, immune from accountability, ready to use all levels of force to silence us as they consolidate power and remake our country in their image." Is that where we are?
Yeah, exactly. And let's be clear, Chris. I want to be very, very clear here. This is a kind of homegrown ugliness. I know Joe Rogan reached for the Gestapo as a way of describing this, but no. This is who we are. This is who the country is. And what we see are those folks who are really mobilizing the power of the state, the legitimate use of deadly force as a way to impose its vision of the country. ICE's sole purpose, and I've said this to you before, ICE's sole purpose is to make America white again. It's to undermine, in so many ways, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. And remember, they're trying to go back to an immigration regime that was basically put in place by the KKK. And we have to be very, very clear about who we are as a nation, Chris. We've only been a multiracial democracy since 1965, and barely then. So what we're seeing is not something imported from outside. This is really, as I said in the beginning, the ugly underbelly of the country. And unless we deal with the truth of what's motivating this, we will fall for the lies that really, in so many ways, undermine our democracy at its very core.
And I think, Eddie, too, I've been thinking a lot about how with so many people being swept up, it's easy to miss the individual stories. And I want to just mention a few that have caught my eye. A mother in Maryland detained for 25 days despite producing multiple documents, proof of citizenship. She was sent to 4 different states before finally being reunited with her family. There was the Minnesota parent picked up while waiting with their child to get on the school bus. A 17-year-old New Jersey high school student, whose priest, by the way, calls him a good kid. He was arrested while doing his laundry. There's also a landscaper who's caregiver to a 9-year-old son with cerebral palsy who was swept up. He's been in this country for 20 years. What is the effect on people, individual families that I think maybe can get lost when we're seeing so many arrests in such a short amount of time, and simultaneously the effect on a broader psyche?
Right. I think, people are terrorized. People are deeply afraid. Folks are depressed. There's a sense that people feel hopeless, and then sometimes they're angry. and they want to strike out. They want to figure out how do they, in so many ways, say no to what is being done in their names. We need to be clear, I think. The country faces a choice. It's a moral choice in some ways, with political implication about who we're going to be. And these folk are acting in the name of the country. And we have to grapple with, Chris, and I think this is hard for us to wrap our minds around. 30% of the nation is hardcore into this. They're all in. And we're going to have to deal with what that means for who we are as a nation. But it also says that 70%, right, are either ambivalent or really hardcore against this. And we're going to have to find our voice as we see these images of these thugs, masked thugs, who don't give a damn about democracy, right, violating the very foundation of what we take to be American principles and the like.
Eddie Glaude, it is always so great to have you on the program. Thank you. Appreciate it.